Hello, welcome back to Mark's House and Garden UK. This is a piece of plastic soil pipe. It's the sort of pipe that goes underground and carries your waste from your toilets to either your septic tank or to the main sewer. Now, if you've been following my channel, you will know that I'm in the process of converting that garage into luxury accommodation. I'm doing it all myself, apart from the electrics, and I'm sharing the journey with you on YouTube. And I've been involved with drains for two reasons. The first reason is I'm replacing my septic tank soakaway. And the water from the septic tank drains into the ground through a pipe like this, which has got holes in the bottom. And the other reason is I'm putting a toilet in there and a bathroom. So I have to put in a new drain from the back of the garage all the way down the side of the garage, along the side of the septic tank, connecting into the main waste pipe that goes into the septic tank. So quite a lot of drains work. I'm doing it all to regulations, and my building inspector has been incredibly helpful. She keeps telling me what to do, basically, so that I know what to do, and then when I've done it, she comes and inspects it. In the process of installing these drains, it's inevitable that you will have to cut it and connect it. Now I have, because my cottage is 450 years old, I have clay pipes going in to my septic tank and clay pipes coming out of my septic tank into my drainage field. But nowadays you're buying plastic, so it begs the question. Number one, how do you cut plastic? And then number two, how do you connect it? And number three, how do you connect plastic to clay? I'm going to cover all those things in this video. There are some special things you must do when you cut this, some other things you must do when you connect plastic to plastic, and also there are some special techniques for connecting clay to plastic. Let's get on with it. Let's start off with cutting plastic right. Now, as I'm always saying in these DIY videos, I'm an amateur. And if you're a professional and you know better than me, then please put your advice in the comments below this video so that everyone can learn from you. I'm sharing what I've learnt as an amateur. Now, I'll be perfectly honest with you, cutting this pipe is not going to be the most difficult part of the process. You can basically just use an old saw to saw through it, but there are certain things you need to do after you've sawed it to connect it. And that's the interesting point, because you might need one of these tools, which is a beveling tool, and some lubricant. Now, I've come up with a hack or a shortcut for cutting this pipe, and it basically involves my very cheap battery powered circular saw. As I say, you can just use a plain old saw to cut through it. I'm going to cut through it using that in a moment. I'll demonstrate it. But the point is, when you buy this pipe, you find that the end is already beveled. And you see that there? There's a bevel. And that bevel is to make it easy to slide into these connectors without damaging the seal inside there. Now, of course, when you cut that, it's going to be flat. So you need to bevel it. And that's what the beveling tool is for. The beveling tool fits on your drill. The beveling tool also makes it quite easy to square off the end, because I found that whenever I've cut this, either using a saw or my circular saw, it's never quite square on the end, but once you start beveling it, the beveling tool makes it square. Right, let me demonstrate this now so that you can see me doing it in front of your eyes. I'll cut it, I'll bevel it, I'll apply some lubricant, and I'll connect it. And then we'll move on to how you connect this to clay. Right, I'm going to put some safety glasses on, because inevitably this will fling off some bits of plastic. Can you see I'm on an old pallet here which has got piece of wood attached there. Really, that's just to help me kind of rotate it. Right, okay. I'll bring the camera in a bit closer so that you can see in a bit more detail. Now, obviously, be careful when you're doing things like this. Keep your fingers out the way of the blade. And then all I do really is cut down and then rotate. And as you do that, you find you'll end up cutting through the pipe. Of course, that's a skill. The more you practice something, the more skillful you'll get. So anyway, I've now got a cut end and it looks a bit rough, doesn't it? It's relatively square, but it is rough. And if I start pushing that into there, number one, it's not going to connect very well. And number two, it might damage the seal, which is where this chamfering tool comes in. Pretty obvious what I'm going to do with it. It's got some blades inside there, which when you put it on your drill and rotate it on the top of that pipe, which I will do for you in a moment, it squares it off and it chamfers it down. Now you do need to buy the right size chamfering tool for your pipe. Right. Put my glasses on actually for this. Place that on there like that. Tighten it up. And it really doesn't get much easier than this. I'm just going to put that on there. And as I do that, slowly but surely, it's squaring the end off and it's applying that chamfer. Let me continue until it's done. And so before we know it, we've got a nice, neat, square end and a beautiful chamfer on that. I'm just going to wipe the end of that clean and then I'll show you how I'm going to connect it using a little bit of that lubricant. And then we'll move on to connecting clay to plastic. And of course, don't forget that there is a company called Materials Market, which I've been using for a lot of my supplies, have issued Mark's House and Garden UK with a discount code, 5% off your first order with them. Check them out. There's a link in the description box below this video. Right, this is that lubricant that you buy for connecting. It just helps it to go in. Incidentally, you can see on there, the shape there. This pipe and that chamfer will go all the way in to that shape and it will connect nice and neatly and there'll be no friction as the waste passes through it. Right, so here's the lubricant and I'll just squidge a bit of this out onto here. Just apply that all around that chamfer with my fingers and also on the inside of the socket too. Quick wipe of the old hands and in theory that should slide quite easily inside there. Now keep an eye on this end of the pipe because you want to make sure that it does go all the way in so that it gets a good connection. But when I put that in there now, with the smallest amount of pressure, that just pops home like that. And that is a good connection. Right, I said I'd show you how to connect plastic to clay. Back over here. I'm now kneeling on top of an inspection chamber which takes the waste in a clay pipe from the cottage into the inspection chamber and then on into the septic tank. The waste from the garage, which is over my left shoulder, is going to come down this pipe and I've got to connect it in to that clay pipe. How am I going to do it? Because I'll have a clay pipe there and I've got plastic here. And how do I connect that to this? Let me show you. Now I might need you to exercise a little bit of imagination here, because what you see is all going to happen underground. Again, imagine that is the soil pipe coming from the back of the garage, and imagine that one is the clay soil pipe coming from the cottage, and I've got to try and get that in there. I've also got to try and connect the clay pipe to the soil pipe. So what's going to happen is this is an inspection chamber, so that you can inspect what's going on. Now these tubes lift off. You can vary the height or the depth, I should say. And the pipe from behind the garage is going to feed into there. And the waste will come down there. And this will be buried on the corner over there behind my shoulder. And then the waste will come down there, drop into there, flow into there and go further underground. That will be connected to this, and then that has to go into the clay pipe. And the way you do it is really straightforward. Don't forget, I'll have two clay ends. I'll cut a section of clay out, and I've got these two rubber connectors, and you can probably see, I'll come a bit closer, one end is narrow and one end is thick. Obviously the thick end is where the clay goes in, and the narrow end is where the plastic goes in. And then you just connect them up using these massive Jubilee clips. So I'll use a whizzer, I call it a whizzer, a circular saw, to cut the end of the clay. I'll put that on and I'll bring it a bit further along. Then I'll offer up the plastic, and then I'll bring that back. But the nice thing about these connectors is they don't cause a restriction in flow, and the internal dimensions of these two pipes is very similar. So the waste that flows down there won't get caught up on anything. So there'll be one of them there to connect clay to plastic, and there'll be another one on the other side, there it is, to connect plastic back to clay. And then this will flow down under gravity from this inspection chamber, which will bring the waste from behind the garage. So that's how you connect clay pipe to plastic pipe. Now there is another type of connector which I have used on this job, but it's already 3 foot underground. But I've got some footage of it, so I'll show you what I mean. But there's another type which has like a flange that fits inside of the tube, and then the outside resembles that. So you can use that way as well. I'm not using that here because I don't want the flange on the inside of the clay pipe to restrict the flow of waste. By using these, you've not got anything on the inside of the pipes, so there's nothing restricting the flow. Let me just put it in place so that you can see what I mean. And this is why I said I need you to use imagination. Waste from behind the garage into inspection chamber, down that tube into the clay pipe. Clay pipe comes from cottage. So there we go, a complete system that then goes into here, which is another inspection chamber, into the septic tank, and then into my soakaway drainage field down there. I think that all makes sense, doesn't it? So, how to cut and bevel or chamfer plastic pipes, how to connect plastic to plastic, and how to connect clay to plastic. And this is a basic setup of what it's going to look like here underground, and you'll be able to see me doing all this in a future video. Got quite a lot of trench digging to do before I can actually put this in place, but it's hardware at the end of the day, and it's pretty straightforward. I'm doing it to regulations with the guidance of the inspector, and I'll get there in the end. If you're an expert and you know more or better than me, then please do comment below this video so we can all share your knowledge. Don't forget the discount code for Materials Market, and I will see you soon for some more house and garden garage conversion adventures. Bye for now.